Welcome to another episode of Doclens.ai podcast. I'm your host, Arnav Dey, CEO and co-founder of Doclens.ai, where we build effective insurance risk assistance focused on improving outcomes in claims and underwriting. Our AI tools combine the power of third-party data, large language models, and domain knowledge to create something helpful, responsible, and accurate for the insurance industry. In this podcast, we hear from experts who are leaders in insurance and technology. And today, we are really honored to have Gerry Heare with us, who has been in the commercial insurance space for 35 years. And the audience can really learn a lot about insurance, technology, and running scale with large number of people from a leader like Gerry. So Gerry, welcome. We are really honored to have you here, and the audience would really want to know about your journey to date.
Yeah, thank you, Arnab, and I'm very happy to be here, as you well know, and appreciate the opportunity to talk today. So my name is Gerry Heare. I have been, as Arnab shared, in the industry for about 35 years. Actually started out as an accountant for a financial service company who owned an insurance company many years ago. And through that 35 years, I have been at 4 different carriers. I have served in roles for small business, middle market, and top end middle market and national business, and a little bit of international laced in. So through that journey, I've worked with the independent agent channel, direct, the large brokers, and an interesting side note is that as a leader, I have been in the field about as much as I've been in home office, and sporadically through that journey. So not one side loaded more heavily than others. So through that journey, I've been able to have an experience that helps keep me aligned with the evolution of our industry in potentially a different way. So I'm grateful for that. I think it's meaningful. I think it's shaped my perspective over time, and particularly as a leader.
That's fantastic. It looks like you have looked at all the nooks and corners of underwriting. So, the question I've been meaning to ask is, when it comes to underwriting, what are the top challenges that you see that the industry is facing today, and areas of improvement?
So, yeah, thank you, Arnab. What first comes to mind with me, and really it's relevant whether we're talking about small business, middle market, national accounts, it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to apply this answer from a commercial lines perspective, because that is what I know. But in the end, every one of those layers or strata of a commercial lines underwriting involves process. Every one of them. And whenever I think about top challenges and really building for tomorrow, I think about efficiently and effectively duplicating best practice underwriting thought process by class, while improving and refining that process through the journey. If we can do that, that leads to consistency and improved portfolio performance. Meanwhile, we're creating an ecosystem where the portfolio can learn from itself with the help of technology. And that is absolutely inclusive, if not dependent on the capabilities that AI provide. So hand in hand with that is that ability to further evolve, leveraging data and information across internal and external systems to inform decision making at risk and portfolio level. Now that's a mouthful, and we've been navigating and building data usage for decades now. But as we'll talk about a little bit further down the road, is that I think we're just scratching the surface at this point. And then finally, I'll say, whenever I think about top challenges and opportunities, it's that ability to be disciplined and layer solutions. Arnab, you and I have talked about that, and resisting that urge to boil the ocean. Right. It's a powerful urge.
Right.
And then, as you and I have talked, Arnab, is that, and I brought it up a little bit earlier, leveraging AI, right? Which leads into, I think, our next question. But
so I think before we get into that, there's one thing for the audience is Gerry mentioned a word class in commercial insurance, and unlike retail insurance or more on the personal side, in commercial side, it's even there are multiple layers, because how you look at property is very different from how you look at commercial vehicles and fleet and others. And so looking at each class is really like a separate type of an asset, and it becomes a lot of complex structuring, and it's so that's why it's so critical that there is no one size fit all in commercial insurance. You have to have that perspective and depth of understanding of risks by different industry layers, right, Gerry?
Absolutely, Arnab, spot on. And to really further that, once you get to the higher end of small business, or certainly in middle market, you can have at risk level a risk that is comprised of multiple classes. Okay. And when we stop and think about that dichotomy between personal lines and commercial lines, and I may be simplifying this, and I'll be the first to say it, but in general terms, in personal lines, you have one class of business. That is a person who owns or rents a home and owns and operates cars, and hopefully has a personal lines umbrella, just in a nutshell. In commercial lines, you have 2,500 classes that comprise the universe. Now, some of those are archaic, but in the end, you still have about 2,300, 2,400-ish that are active. And some are served by the excess and surplus lines, some are served by specialty, but a lot of those classes, better than half, are generally served by standard carriers. That's a lot of classes. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of untapped data. And that's a lot of complexity.
That's a lot of complexity. Like a pickleball court it's very different from a restaurant. You also brought about AI and the process, and there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence fundamentally changing the way we work. And you mentioned that you see AI as a powerful force earlier on. Where some specific examples, or how do you see that, Gerry?
So Arnab, you know me well enough to know that I'm going to go right into the meat of this. So I love the capabilities, some of the more general capabilities that AI provides, but what really gets me excited is when we think about our industry. So the property casualty insurance industry, and I'm going to focus on the commercial line side, but think about the vast stores of data that we possess or have access to. whether that's internally or externally, and we have vast stores in both arenas. But its potential, it's only partially tapped. And I look at that and then I think, well, if we can sequence data differently so that the whole is far greater than the sum of the parts, which everything that we can see and look at in today's world will tell us that is a true statement. The question is how? How? So I look at that and I think about, in terms of leveraging data and information across both internal and external systems to inform decision making at not just risk level, because we can do, to some extent, for some classes, we can do risk level with machine learning for some classes. But in the end, AI takes that, expands it, and then really expands it to portfolio level. When you start thinking in terms of being able to access information from a claims perspective within your ecosystem, your ability to access information from a premium audit perspective or an engineering perspective within your ecosystem. That gets powerful really, really quickly. Then the ability to extend out to an external source that might inform, hey, these are the things that you want to look for or look at or contemplate in your decision-making process. And that is automatically created through an AI platform. Well, then that gets back to our opening discussion about that underwriting best practice and consistency and that ability to continuously refine that. So those are the types of things that really excite me.
No, that's very well said. And, a lot AI is the missing middle layer because there's a lot of front-end investments that has gone in document ingestion. There is a lot of downstream investments that has been made in machine learning or pattern recognition. But now the middle layer is getting unlocked, where what do you do with all the ingested documents and thousands of pages of words that are on a page? How do you translate that into information that can be fed into as an input to the machine learning algorithms that can be there? And you need great natural language processing, large language models, whatever you call it, but that genre of tools to come in and really connect the capabilities that we have built out in the ingestion part and the backend part. So on that note, how have you seen data technology have shaped underwriting to date? And what challenges have you seen in those implementation as you look back and at the rich history of 30 plus years in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely, Arnab. Thank you. And I am going to date myself a little bit, but I think it's important when we talk about that journey. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think about that technology journey is really the fundamentals. When I started, there was no email as we think of. There was intra-office email, the old DOS system, black screen, green print, within your facility or within your wider network of office buildings. But I think about email and Excel. And for those that used Lotus Notes way back in the day, Excel is much better. That's all I'm gonna say. So I think about that and that ability to create efficient worksheets and change the world of forms management, certainly changed the world of statistical reporting. There was a time when statistical reporting tapes were run to the bank twice a day and put in a vault. I remember those days. Yeah. But that, of course, thankfully, all of that has changed. It is much more effective and efficient now. But stepping out past the kind of those early days, and those were really big wins. They seem small today, but then they were really big wins. From there, we moved to really having technology create the capability to build a platform to support really effective and efficient predictive modeling. Technology is stamped all over, particularly in those early days, that ability to create predictive modeling effectively. Now I'll share that, from there, storage and retrieval of data, certainly leading to enhanced portfolio management, CAT management. Really, a lot of the models that we have from an actuarial perspective, that's behind the scenes, that has changed dramatically, really through the 90s and 2000s. And then leading up to kind of a more recent example is, pass-through capabilities for some classes of business for some carriers. Back in the early days, we dabbled with that. And of course, as you know, Arnab, as you and I have talked, that was very much machine learning early days. But now I look at that and I think, about bringing that forward really into our conversation today and untapped potential once you start weaving in AI to that. I think it affords the opportunity to leapfrog and really fill a lot of gaps that over the last 25 years we have incrementally filled happenstance, and often without a clear pathway. And yes, I think AI changes that.
Right. Particularly in middle market, because I think in small business, which is closer to retail, you have fewer variables. And there has been a ton of innovation in underwriting in the last 5-6 years in small business, because it has moved a lot towards the spectrum of automation, and sometimes straight through within a localized area. It's tougher to do logic-based underwriting in middle market. It is a little bit more subjective, and that's where would you say that AI would be a lot more effective in the next 5-6 years of underwriting?
Absolutely, and certainly being able to tie those internal and external data providers or systems, keys to the kingdom as I see it from a middle market perspective. And then I'll share, because I'll jump back to small business just really quickly, because technology is wonderful in the small business space, and I agree vehemently. Lots of advancement there, lots more opportunity to advance still available. I think AI is part of that solution, but then there's also some what I'm going to call real challenges from a relationship perspective that we're, as an industry, we have to work through. When you think about small business and you think about data inputs and conflicting data inputs, and Sam says this and Sally says that, and what do you do with that? So I think some of those types of things have to get shaped and molded better than what they are today, because that is a reality.
That's great. So it brings to the next question, which Gerry, you mentioned earlier on that you have always been a champion of technology, and you have championed the advancements of technology within the underwriting sphere. So what makes a good technology partner? What do you look for from a technology partner?
So from a technology partner. And then I'll come back to the question on challenges in implementing, because I think that's really important. But a good technology partner. So Arnab, you've come to count on me for this. I'm going to give you a simple but genuine answer. So whenever I think about a good technology partner, I think that it's the same ingredients that support a strong personal relationship. And here's what I mean when I say that. So in a strong personal relationship, you keep up with evolution inside and outside the relationship. That's what you do. And there's that expectation on both ends of that equation. So there's trust, there's flexibility, you have shared goals, you have checkpoints to establish and the all-important meeting of the minds. You are okay to disagree. That's okay. As a matter of fact, that might be desirable. And strong ethics. I mean, those are the types of things that I think of when I think of a good technology partner. But above all things, it's that ability to flex and flex with those shared goals. And if something's not working, then it's not working. And then you adjust for that.
I hope InsurTech, particularly younger leaders or aspirational leaders, are taking heed to these be your best self nuggets from Gerry. So, Gerry, you alluded to implementation challenges. Anything else that you wanted to comment on that area?
Yeah, absolutely. The first and foremost, when I think about challenges, I think it's just that challenge to, when you think about technology solutions, to not get so enamored, because it's easy to do, because it is exciting, it's moving fast, but no matter how you cut it, and again, this is from a commercial lines lens, it's a relationship business. It absolutely is. I do not see that changing in the short term or the midterm. Potentially in the long term, who knows? But as far as I can see, still a relationship-driven business. And when I say that, I don't just mean agent, carrier, policyholder. I think it runs all the way through. It runs through that. Through the agent as really a hub of local business, the local business ecosystem. It runs very, very deeply. But then more on the traditional challenges, I'll say it's the things that we all deal with, right? It's determining inside an organization and agreeing on who is clearly responsible for what, and then building an effective and efficient pathway and process, right? It's their age-old challenges. I think I've seen them since day one in my career. And ironically, they were challenges that we had at that beginning financial services company that wasn't selling property and casualty policies, but owned a company that did. So all of those things I think are age-old and need to have clarity and best practice around that. And within that, then is that, whenever I think of challenges that I've seen the challenge of not having a process for midterm changes and curveballs, right?
That's right.
I think that we all would agree that we should expect that we're going to have curveballs, and not that we're going to have the answer straight away for that curveball, but we have to think about what's that process look like to get there. I'll say interpreting regulatory requirements. Here's probably a keys to the kingdom: managing expectations. You and I have talked about this in the past, Arnab. When I think about some of those early days coming up through the 90s and the tech bubble burst and the late 90s rolling into 2000. And I think about all the disappointed folks, because in the end, that the vision was really to boil the ocean. And there was a lot of disappointment, and there was fits and starts on I guess appeal to invest in technology over periods of time over the last 30 years. And then I look at that and then I think, well, in the end, of course, you're always much smarter in the rearview mirror, but you look at it and you think, well, that was really all about managing expectations. We were trying to boil the ocean and we didn't. And then we set it aside. In some cases, we set it aside for years. And not understanding that we really advanced significantly from a layered perspective. So we didn't boil the ocean like we planned, but my question is, the plan shouldn't have been to boil the ocean.
That's right.
And there are enough to layer that.
Yeah, and there are, and this is not a new age. We saw exactly this in analytics, for example. In the beginning of analytics, there were a lot of people that some like the progressives of the world took it by the horn and continued being in the forefront of coming up with the papers and the patents and innovation and the technology implementation. And there were a lot of people that were naysayers. There were a lot of people in the sidelines. The concerns were the same. Hey, is predictive model fair? Is it accurate? Is it helpful? Is it biased, or how do we make it unbiased? Those questions have nothing to do with analytics, AI. These are business questions that will remain whatever tool comes to the forefront. Like it can be edge computing, it can be something
Absolutely.
else. But those questions are fundamental, and those needs to be answered. Amazing discussion, Gerry, with you. Now, as we get to the end, these are 3 questions for the audience to know you. First one is, what is your favorite book, Gerry?
So, Arnav, I really appreciate that, and I gave some significant thought to it, and I have a lot of great choices, and I have a lot of great favorites, but I'll give you a couple of timeless ones. And I'm going to put equal value on this. So as a young manager many years ago, I had a boss who I still am in contact with. He's retired, but he required me to read The Art of War by Sun Tzu and report out to him, which I did. So I learned a lot from that book. It's a basic premise, just about strategy in general. I don't plan on going to war with anybody, so just strategy and molding thought processes. But I'd say, and then I would say on the other end of the spectrum, and I try my best to apply this really throughout my career, is Business by the Book by Larry Burkett. And then really most any Warren Buffett publication. Again, it's all about the thought process and those interesting twists and turns and the things that make you say, well, I didn't think about that. I relish in finding those things that say, wow, I didn't even think about that. And he's really good at propelling that. But lots of choices.
It's very good at the preparation part, which also is a central theme of Sun Tzu in Art of War. Whether you are following the principles or not, that's a separate story. But preparation is consistent message.
Absolutely.
Amazing choices. I have not read Business by the Book, so this is one of my list for the long plane rides. So your favorite personality?
So my favorite personality, Arnab, and there's lots of great choices, clearly, and there's lots that I admire, and I'm really tempted to offer a really cerebral response, but I'm not. So what I am going to offer is a fictitious personality that I'm assuming most of us know, and that's Doc Brown from Back to the Future. So, and what I like about Doc Brown is that he's a bit of a mad scientist and he pushes the envelope. And through trial and error, his creations mostly work. You know, he's genuine and his brain and his heart are aligned, leading to good, sound, and principled decisions. That's why I like Doc Brown. And I have a relative that reminds me a lot of Doc Brown.
I hope the relative is listening to this podcast. But I'm sure, like most of the people that we revere today, I'm sure a lot of them were probably perceived as crazy by their friends and family and people that came across them, because they are outliers, and
absolutely,
we call that crazy. Outlier is a geeky term.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of crazy, right?
Always it takes a little bit of craziness to disrupt and to innovate. And so it brings that to the last question on the podcast, which is advice that you would want for budding new professional who is entering the insurtech and is listening to this podcast. Your advice to that young person or young lady?
So excellent question. Great choice to close. Take the time to clearly identify and establish what you're trying to solve. And whenever it's possible, determine whether there were past attempts to solve. History is an awesome teacher if we listen. And just because it didn't work yesterday doesn't mean that it won't work tomorrow. Might mean that we might need to adjust the dial some. But whenever I think in terms of that journey over my career as respects technology, I think there were lots of opportunities where we were very close, and in certain initiatives we gave up because we didn't manage our expectations. So ask lots of questions and listen, and then listen some more. And then finally, push the envelope. Be Doc Brown.
Be Doc Brown. Be prepared, have data, and push the envelope. Amazing. Thank you so much, Gerry, for sharing your thoughts in this podcast. I'm sure the next few years you're going to drive a lot of innovation in the intersection of underwriting, technology, and I think our industry will benefit from that. So all the best to you for your future endeavors, and it was a real pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Arnab. Appreciate it.